My name is Ken Cook. We're at Spreading Oaks Farm, and we have right at 17.5 acres. We have about 3.5 to 4 acres under cultivation and 8 high tunnels. A high tunnel is all the heat that is produced is radiant heat. There's no fossil fuel type burning, no heating. It's all done solarized, and we actually cultivate and plant in the ground. Most greenhouses have some other source of heat and some other source of ventilation. I don't think the numbers will warrant heating any of these structures other than through, the sun.
Folks get high tunnels and they go to almost the next step where they're heating them. And the only time we found it to be, profitable is if you have a source of wood. But if you have to pay for gas or propane, it doesn't even come close to being doable.
But just as soon as the sun goes down, the temperatures go down. The ground is actually the only thing that will hold the heat.
Yep.
If we have a 28-degree temperature outside, our air temperature 6 foot off the ground in here will probably be 30 to 32. And then that gain about 4 degrees.
One thing to keep in mind, if you're off the farm all day or if you're working a lot.
If you're going to a market in the morning.
If you're going to market in the morning and it's cloudy out in the morning, if you don't have anyone to raise these sidewalls when the sun comes through, it can get really, really hot in there. And that's something sometimes tomatoes, if it gets too hot, you'll get like a white hard core in the center. And so a lot of times if you leave in the morning, you've got tomatoes in there, it gets hot and sunny, you'll come back and it'll be 130 degrees. And so that is something to think about if you can't be around or.
Right, in the summertime when we have tomatoes growing in ours, if we let it down. Once we pass about April 20 to April the 30th, our sides and ends stay open pretty much all the time.
And one thing, the question was about using shade cloth. Also keep in mind that this is new plastic right now. Over a few years, it just gets enough dirt and stuff on it that you'll get, in some cases, 15 to 20% shade just out of your plastic. And if you couple a 35 or 40% shade cloth on that, you're really potentially shading out. If you're gonna take tomatoes really late into the tunnel, there are some heat set tolerant varieties. They're not gonna be your old heirloom types that maybe have better flavor, but you'll be able to get fruit throughout the season. And so the question was, having pollinator plants, like bringing beneficials in, having flowers. We've seen in the field that can have a positive impact, like buckwheat is a good cover crop that we'll plant. In the tunnel, because a lot of times it's sealed up and stuff, I would say unless you had a lot of like rows almost, you wouldn't see a tremendous benefit. On the flip side, if you like to use beneficial insects, in the field a lot of times if let's say you release lacewings or lady beetles, they just disappear. But in the tunnel, they work pretty well because they tend to hang out in that tunnel. We used to use a lot of lady beetles for aphid control. Yeah, usually the only thing sometimes if you have some different beneficial insects in there, like different like whitefly, parasitic wasps and stuff, people will grow banker plants, where it's basically a plant that always has a little population of aphids or whiteflies or something on it. And the idea is if you're beneficials, they'll have something to feed on. But it can work, but you got to really be on your game to get it to work. Because cover cropping, you're going to have to take it out of production for a while. And if you can add a high quality compost per unit of carbon, because it's a smaller area, you can almost add as much soil carbon in some cases if you can't take that tunnel out of production. Now, if you are going to pull it out for 2 months or something, you can throw a cover crop in there. I wouldn't put something like sorghum Sudan grass or something like that in there. I've seen that before, and it can be a challenge. You know, if you are going to take it out, it might be an option. Otherwise, you know, adding compost and or wood chips or leaf litter. A lot of folks will plant cowpeas as a cover crop, and you could grow southern peas in here.
We don't have it outside.
Right, and so any of those legumes are going to help build your soil nitrogen and so forth.
We're certified naturally grown, which is the organic certification for a smaller producer like we are. We adhere to all same standards as USDA organics. We do a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and what we do, people buy a share of the farm's produce, and so for 32 weeks they receive a basket of produce. We have a website, localharvest.org, or you can email us at spreadingoaksfarmatt.net.